And joining me now is Emmy-nominated writer for The Daily Show and stand-up comedian Ashton Womack. Ashton, my guy, where have you been? How have you
I'm
been?
good, man. I've been good. Same as like last time, just chilling, working, keeping my head afloat above water, and keeping the dream going. That's what I've been doing.
So for people that don't know, Ashton, you are from Houston. You spent some time, but now you're living in New York.
Yes, sir.
And tell us the folks how you got your journey into stand-up.
My journey start in stand up, particularly, it actually started at a very young age. Like my family used to sit back, like on I can't remember the days, but we would all sit back and watch Def Comedy Jam. And I was a baby. It was like early 90s. And I didn't understand the jokes, but I knew the vibe of like everybody laughing and have a good time. And I think that just imprinted on me. And I was like, whatever this is what I want to do. So like my childhood, I always was watching stand-up comedy, like birthday gifts. My mom wouldn't give me like my 10th birthday wasn't a physical gift. It was I was allowed to stay up past 9 to watch BET's Comic View. And that was like transformational for me. Like being able to tie it to like, oh, I'm getting older. I get to stay up an extra hour and I get to watch this like mature comedy. And it was just like really monumental for me. And so that make it inspiring me, got me into like actually when I was 15, 16 with my dad being like, can I do stand up? And he put me on stage when I was a teenager. I caught the bug ever since. At 20, I did it as much as I could as a teenager, but then had to stop obviously for school. But then once I went to college, I was like, oh, I'm on my own. I'm gonna do stand up again. And I was like 22, and it's been up ever since. I've been doing stand up and taking it very seriously for the past like 10, almost 11 years now. It's really awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. And for backstory for people, I was doing open mics just to try it, and that's when you and I first met. I saw you and I'm like, oh yeah, I have no business being up here.
Yeah, sure. You absolutely no, you absolutely did. I also had no business being up there. I just kept going. That's called the one of us is more delusional than the other. That's
But then you got to New York, and then just tell us, I guess, how you got involved with the Daily Show.
oh yeah, no, that was super crazy. Well, one, I was in Houston. I got what's it called? Cut my cloth in Houston very heavily. Like I, Ali Sadiq put the pressure on me. All like the Houston OGs, the people I was coming up with, so fire. They were all so good. So like by pressure, I mean like good artistic, creative pressure in Houston. So you're like, oh man, I want to be good. I need to get good at the fundamentals, and I need to get good at like Houston had the fundamentals down. And so that was like really like I'm sorry, I know I live in New York, so I don't know if you hear the ambulance, but
I didn't. Oh, now I hear it.
but yeah, Houston really like helped me cut my cloth there. And so once I like in my head felt like I had reached the glass ceiling in Houston because we didn't have much industry. I was like, well, I'm poor in Houston and I'm doing stand up. I can be poor in New York. And I, I live. That's what that was like. My mind. I was like, oh, dude. Well, what if I'm already poor? What else could you do? Make me more poor? And boy, was I wrong. Boy, boy, was I wrong. I became triple, 2 times, 4 times as poor. I moved to New York. Ended up within a year in a homeless shelter. The first 6 months. Stayed at that shelter because they didn't have me pay rent. They were like, I asked them how long can I stay there, and they didn't want to tell me because the truth was you could stay there until you got on your feet. So I was genuinely at the bottom, like no job opportunities, no nothing. And so I was at the shelter on EBT, welfare, all that stuff, just going to open mics, applying to jobs for 2 years, getting nothing, and then just luckily within a year, I got like a manager. I got like accolades, like this thing called Just for Laughs, which is not, it's no longer a thing anymore. But at the time, it was a huge festival in Canada. It gave you put you in front of a bunch of people, gave you mad opportunities. I was fortunate enough to get in front of people. But that didn't get me a Daily Show. What got me a Daily Show was keeping grinding in New York, even after I got all that, going back to open mics. And one day at an open mic, somebody at the Daily Show saw me and they were like, "Hey, you want to not apply for a writer, but apply for researcher?" Got the researcher job, and within a year, I moved up. I got promoted to writer just off of talking to Trevor. He got the Grammys while I was a researcher, and I was just like, "Yo, bro, can I send you some jokes?" And he was like, "Yeah, let me see them." And I sent them to him, and he was like, "Dude, I'm gonna hire you for the Grammys, and then I'm gonna give you a packet for the Daily Show. It's gonna be blind, so if you don't make it, listen, that's on you. It's blind packet submission, which is basically they're reading a bunch of like what are they called? Packets are essentially auditions for comedians to work for shows. You write up mock scripts for that show, whether it be like monologue jokes or you come up with games or ideas for the show to do. So he said after he hired me for the Grammys, when we were coming back to New York, he was like, we're gonna let you audition to be a writer for the Daily Show. It's going to be blind. So if your packet doesn't get chosen, that means that was just, it's not like we chose it out of favor. It just was, you didn't get chosen. We're choosing we're adding your packet to the pile and we're picking out of the pile blindly. Whoever gets picked is who we're going to hire. Fortunate enough, the God's rain looked down on me that day and they picked me and hired me promoted me essentially as a writer. And that's how I got in the writing room at the Daily Show.
Yeah, this was like 2018, 2019, we're talking?
Actually, 2020. I started in the research department in November 2019. I remember because it all had coincided with the pandemic. I got hired November 2019. I remember they said like, that's when like COVID entered America or something like that. So that like kind of, I always, it anchored that time period to that memory. So, and then a few months later, we were no longer working in offices. So I was like, oh, and I was a researcher. So yeah, it was November 2019.
And then you were like writing for him. You got to be one of his writers for whenever he hosted the Grammys. Like what,
Yeah.
3 years in a row?
Yeah, it was 4 years in a row, actually. We did it last year too. So it's like 4 years in a row. You know, my fingers are crossed. I'm like fingers crossed for five. That's spoiled. It's very much spoiled, but like it's the grant writing for the Grammys. That's like I didn't even know that was a dream I could have, but it's like dreams come true. Just the experience every time, and the team just gets so much better at it every single time. So that's why I get excited. I'm like, oh, we come in now. We like the varsity seniors on campus when we're now.
You guys got Letterman jackets and
Yeah,
stuff now.
genuinely, it's really fun. So my fingers are crossed, you know.
Well, so and now here's Trevor is no longer at the Daily Show, but it's Jon Stewart's come back and it's been like a rotation different hosts. What is the sort of main difference you would say in terms of jokes and storytelling compared to Jon Stewart and Trevor Noah?
They definitely have different, I would say, styles. It's tough for me. I mean, because we write as a team. They're both incredibly, like, obviously it's like jokes are all to the highest level. I'd say Trevor he'll do more jokes per minute. Jon obviously does jokes. Jon's perspective, we'll take the higher perspective. That's what we're looking for. And then it's the real difference for me that I've grown is seeing like, or not even grown, because they do the same thing. They both have their own way of like conveying a message. But I think Jon does his first thing we look for is the framing of how we're going to tell his story. And I think that's like important for him. That's like he's just from my perspective. I could be wrong. I'm only speaking from just one single writer on a team of many. But I always notice like, okay, once we have a story, but how are we going to tell the story? And Trevor was the same way as well. I think, but so far being with Jon, I noticed like, okay, when pitching, what is the framing is really, really important with him, which is awesome. I mean, I'm like, okay, I really gotta think about what I'm about to, or not, I'm always thinking, but like really gotta go over my P's and Q's before I pitch. Because it's Jon Stewart, it's like, dude, he's the guy who's he took it to the next level. He's like the guy I like got into this for, like
Yeah.
watch. So it's like really, if I'm being like, if I'm concise about it, it's the pressure, my own pressure that I put on myself is amplified because I'm like, oh my God, this is the guy who, when I turned the TV on, is my inspiration, and now I'm like contributing to helping his ideas. So uh, I might be speaking from a perspective of like I want to contribute to the bigger idea, and he's always like, "What's the big idea?" So yeah,
And I,
yeah.
and I think that's something people underestimate about, I almost said misunderestimate, but when people, that's something I think people underestimate about comedy and joke telling, that it's funny, but there's a seriousness to it. You can't fake it, and you certainly can't teach it. Um, but in your opinion, what is something people underestimate about jokes and storytelling, or jokes and telling from that perspective? What is something people underestimate about it?
Well, one, I just want to say, I do think you can teach comedy. I think there's big elements, like just the framework of comedy that can be taught, and like people can learn. Of course, people have their own like their gauge of funny, since comedy is subjective. What they find is funny. Some people may think, well, your taste is. People have certain tastes, so like, but I do think comedy can be taught to a certain degree. Uh, Now, to answer like, what was your question one more time?
What's something people underestimate about comedy?
Yeah, definitely the amount of thought that goes into it. Like, definitely the level of like, how do you say? Yeah, I think a lot of comics come off as silly and buffoonish and like, but there's, sad to say, there's thought that goes into it. They're not. I don't think it's as maybe. Uh, just as contrived as, or not, maybe contrived is the wrong word, but like spontaneous as people think. It's a little bit more contrived as from my perspective. Like sometimes somebody will watch me and think I'm just being silly, like, oh, that was so off the cuff, not knowing I did that 37 times before. And so that, I think that's one, like the thought that goes into comedy is a lot. And also I guess uh, I, yeah, I'll just say that. I'll stick that to my answer. Yeah.
Well, I was gonna say there's something that people will kind of, this is something because I know comedians. I know you as like one of my favorite local comics, and just comics in general. I'm not just trying to butter you up.
No,
I do genuinely enjoy your stand-up.
appreciate that.
But everything I hear from other comics is no joke is off limits.
Mhm.
Like if you have like it's funny because you have the thought. What is it about comedy that is so limitless though?
Oh, now I will say that's a great, yeah, I can definitely say that is a huge underappreciated element of comedy, and something that helped transform my own shape of like thinking was the day I gave myself comedic license, because comedy, that helped me evolve my comedy in the sense of like, what am I not afraid to say?
Hmm.
Well, if I'm gonna do this, and this is like this is like an internal thing. I'm like, if I'm gonna do this, I cannot be afraid to say anything. And I have to also, be responsible with what I say. And like, I understand it. I'm going to say something. I'm going to have consequences. People can say something back. They can have a reaction to that thing I said. But it is very much a hugely underappreciated ability to just say what you want. And it's cathartic. It's like shapes my personality. Like, I know there aren't any like limits to my creativity. Yeah, it breaks that boundary of like that bound of like thought you had on yourself. You put yourself in a box. You handicap yourself from like thinking further when you're like, I can't say that. I can't say that. But then you're doing comedy. You have to say, in order to be able to just, whenever you have a thought and you're like, that's good, but I can't say that, I'm going to take that away. That might have been a great joke that you just threw away because you were scared to say it. And
Yeah.
it's a silly joke. It's a joke. I have so many jokes that are just the stupidest thought I had that week. And I said, I'm going to do that on stage. I don't care how dumb. This is the whole purpose of this. I'm going to go say this completely idiotic thing that just no normal human being would ever utter in
Yeah.
reality.
No, one of my favorite jokes, it was shortly after your father passed away, which is a terrible way to start it. But
No,
but
I understand.
but it was like shortly after your dad passed away, you were like, yeah, my dad died. And he was such a great father. He never drank around me. He never cursed around me. He never lived around me.
Yeah. Yeah, I was like, yeah, I appreciate that. That's just having fun. I'm like, I have these are my circumstances. I'm gonna make, I'm gonna try. I always try to like transform like something in my, this is my thinking. I'm like, I'm gonna transform this dark thought or dark feeling into something positive and light and something silly. Uh, the joke about, it was always a running joke in my like to my from myself to my dad. My like I love my dad, but he didn't become super active until I became a teenager. Granted, when he was there, I'm here. I'm sitting in the seat talking to you, partially because my dad did everything he can to get me on stage, support me in the most goofiest ideas I had. But a joke was, from first half of my life at the time, he wasn't there. So I can make the joke. Growing up, my dad never drank around me, smoked around me, lived around me. And even the freedom, I'm like, is this gonna hurt my dad's feelings? Because the guy's done a lot for me. But even that, I'm like, no, he understands my heart. I genuinely am just making a joke. And I truly try to come from the heart with it whenever I'm saying these like, typical things you don't typically say that are like kind of out there and like I try to come from the heart with it. That way, when I deliver it and people see it, they're like, "Oh, he's just being a silly person,
Yeah.
a goof, a class clown." I hope when I'm saying something that's wildly, you know, out there, people aren't going like, "He really means that," and like, I hope they're able to have the joke literacy to pick up on that. Like, oh, this is called sarcasm. This is called someone just being a class clown or something. But
Well,
yeah, it's
see,
definitely freedom that comes with
right. But now here's where things get crazy. When it comes to covering politics,
it. Mhm.
how do you reconcile the gravity and the reality of it
Mhm.
with how silly and comical it is?
It's definitely, I will say, like, and the more I do it, and like more just like, I have my own morals and ethics as a person. Uh, I have my own what I believe, my own POV of the world, and I don't want to hurt nobody's feelings. Everywhere is it's two. It feels like I'm being pulled two ways, and you just got to find the balance. Because one hand, I don't believe in like going. I'm not a bully in my heart. I don't believe so. I don't believe in just going out and being like, I can't wait to use this next 5 minutes. Let's talk about how this group of people. Let's talk about how bad this group of people. My compass points towards people in power who are actually causing harm. So maybe if I don't ever like, I try not to, I'm not no super political. I don't see myself as a political comedian. I just see myself as like versatile. I talk about everything that's happening. I see, observing. Uh, so when I choose, I'm going to use my freedom to talk about whatever I want and say whatever I want and point that towards people who are causing harm and like and make my topics about that to bring light to that if I am doing something like that. That's my intent. That's what I hope I come across. That being said, it's like any kind of tool. Comedy is like not I don't want to call it a tool, but I'm like the analogy I would make is just like uh technology. It can be good, it can be bad. You can use it for good, you can use it for bad. Same with your own comedy and art and expression. You can use it for good, you can use it for bad. I hope you're using it. We all have our own perspectives, POVs, and codes of ethics and morals. And uh I can't be an arbiter. I don't think it's tough for us all to be an arbiter on what you can and can't do. But I do think, we're growing as a society. We all have like we have a good sense of what's right and what's wrong, and it's on you to use that to your discretion. And when people come at you, don't be confused. I don't know when it's like,
No, but that's the thing, man. It's like there's a saying that it's always funny until it happens to you. And
yeah,
I'm sure you've been keeping in touch with the news about what's been going on in Houston. I mean, recently in Fort Bend County, the county judge got indicted or at least booked in jail for a social media hoax.
Mm,
And he basically pulled a Jesse Smollett.
that's very
and
that's
and
great.
didn't the mayor of New York City, didn't he just get indicted? I mean, what is
Yeah,
happening here?
yeah, no, it's like I mean, I don't know what's happening, but I'm gonna definitely be sitting back and watching it and be like, wow, well, I guess if you didn't want to do the crime, don't want to do the crime. Right, I guess. Sorry, use it. Don't know what to tell you. But yeah, I have no idea what's happening. Well, I do have an idea. Maybe they say power corrupts. That's I don't know. Maybe that's a thing we should look into. But we're just watching the I don't know, our politics play out. This is what we voted into office, apparently, and this is what we're getting, a actual reality TV show. And so I hope we fix it. I hope we, course correct it. But until then, I'm gonna make jokes.
And I'd like to think that way, but how do we keep that laughter from turning psychotic? Because these are frightening times.
They are frightening times. And one, I think we turn the laughter to make light of things. Obviously, comedy isn't going to solve our problems. So I think the main thing we got to do is, in order to remain, functioning society, handle our problems. Let's start with like handling our problems, because if we don't, and we're all into the entertainment, we're just like, well, dumping our minds into like, let me just laugh. Well, we're gonna go crazy if we're just all doing, we're just focusing on entertainment and not solving our problems. So one, if we want to stop from laughing psychotically, we might want to fix the problems first. But then two, yeah, me personally though, it's tough because like writing comedy, you're like you want to exaggerate, but it's like everything is already realities feel so exaggerated that I'm like, okay, I have to take it to another level, and taking it to another level feels crazy in thought. So like sometimes I'm already laughing psychotically just to come up with a joke. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Vote in your local elections. I have no idea how to.
So cool. Yeah, that's the idea, right? Well, and they say laughter is the best medicine, but how does it like, how possible is it for us to laugh ourselves out of this predicament? Or what else is there, like, aside from telling people, hey, yeah, this is a funny thing, but oh, I hope you're taking notes.
I definitely think comedy has that element of like there's a part of it that feels when we speak to the masses. That's why you see like a lot of viral clips that go popular about like moments that are happening now. It's usually a comedian speaking to something that we're all feeling, and it's like it's cathartic release for us all. So that is a huge perspective when a comedian can come in and like say we're all speaking and hopefully have a perspective that's like a little bit more enlightening and eye-opening, and being like, okay, removes the I think a good comedy doesn't get you angry or get you like, oh yeah, you're confirming my biases. I appreciate it. I think good comedy maybe is the ones where it's like, oh, we're all coming together and feeling good and laughing as a unit and not contributing to division. So I think comedy that just is good old entertainment and got us all collectively feeling good and having that human experience in that moment, laughing together. That's like a magical experience every time. Every single time I'm in a comedy club telling a joke and I can feel us all come together with a laugh. It feels like we're all singing a song together. And so like that's unifying. And that, to me, that like all the divisions that have been created comes together. Comedy that helps the division, I think you know, try not to do that. Granted, that's, I don't know what divides people. People have their own perspectives. So, sometimes I'm like more of a leftisty, liberal-minded guy. So someone could think my perspectives of like just genuinely wanting like social benefits for society, it could be just division right there. So you don't know what that's the tough part. You don't know what is causing, what you could say that could cause division, and have someone be like, "Hey, I don't agree with that." But I think I think the ultimate goal is to do comedy that unifies us. That's my goal.
Well,
Side, I also want to make that statement with a caveat. Comedy's ultimate goal is just to make people laugh, though. There is no higher moral goal. I'm speaking more personally. I would like unifying comedy, but the only goal comedy has is to make you laugh.
yeah. And do you think that there will ever, speaking of making people laugh, you know, are there any good things to come out of these political jokes that you guys tell, or you as a comedian you tell? Do you think there is some good that comes out of it?
I think sometimes a good joke, a good 100%, a good political joke, or just a joke about like something that's happening, you can make light of something that's like you can bring light to something that previously didn't seem how absurd it was before. You can, if you joke about something like how are we not, how is this not wild that we're not all going nuts about this. Let's bring light to this absurdity in this fact of nature, or fact of our reality. So I do think it helps us, like, good comedy that can spread light to something can shake us the spell of something that's hypnotizing, like society, like, oh, we're all following along with this, and then a good joke or something could come along and just highlight the hypocrisies or the absurdity of this thing that we're all just hypnotized by, and it can
Like
break.
roughly how 20 years ago Howard Dean made a scream and everybody thought that was a
Yeah,
controversy.
exactly. You remember when we were going crazy about that? And, like, oh yeah, that was. And simply bring like, oh yeah, we are in much insaner times right now.
Well,
That
and do you ever think, this is the last question I have. Do you ever think politics will be boring again?
Man, that would be a lovely day.
Sorry, what did you say?
That would be a lovely day. That would be a lovely day. I would be out of a job, but that would still be a lovely day. I wouldn't be working as much, but if politics gets boring, I, I do pray and hope we get on a track to where we have policies and people in place who genuinely have the people's well-being in mind, and I don't have to watch them every 2.5 seconds to or have to worry about them saying Haitian people are eating some new like lying about a whole group of people. So that would be a great day. But fingers crossed. I'm going to put it on my vision board. We'll manifest, get the crystals, get the girls together. We'll do as much as we can to make
Get the
that
girls
happen.
together.
But yeah,
Well,
hopefully.
so is there anything else you want to add? This is also your opportunity to plug any cool things if you're coming to Houston anytime soon.
Man, dude, if I had anything to say, God bless Houston. I love everybody. I miss everybody. I can't wait to come back down and visit, see the fam, friends, everybody, just feel the vibes again. And if you want to catch me out now, I drop weekly sets to my YouTube channel, Ashton Womack Comedy. YouTube, find me there. You'll find weekly jokes every a short a day, a set a week. So yeah, check me out there.
All right. Ashton Womack, Emmy nominated writer, stand-up comedian for The Daily Show. Thank you so much. I always love talking to you, man.
Thank you. I always love these chats as well, man. Makes me, I get to go on with my day feeling good. I'm like, oh, I'm doing something.
Well, cool. I love that. Well, all right, brother. We'll catch you soon. Thank you again for your time.
Dude, love you. Peace.